us around. And from there, let me go over my notes one more time. Now we need to present our first presentation of the first meeting of the first 1 million cups in Chico. We have PEAR. This is Matt and Nate, and they're going to tell us about their idea for inception and how we can help them.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you guys for joining us today. We're going to start you off with a prompt. So I just want you to read this and respond to it yourself. The most meaningful gift I've ever received was, let's take some time to kind of think about that real quick. All right, and again, thank you guys for joining. My name is Matt, this is Nate. We're here to talk to you guys about our company PEAR, and more specifically our first product, PEAR Cards.
Okay. Like I said, I'm Nathan, or Nate, if it's easier. I'd like to take you back about a decade ago when I was about 14 years old, kind of the root system of how PEAR began. It started, we'll see, I was a young teen in a single-parent household. It was me and my mother, and we were each other's support system. But like most young teens, I got into this phase where I didn't want to talk. Our conversations became kind of interrogational. She would ask me a question, and I would give her these monosyllabic answers and try to avoid all type of contact and engagement whatsoever. She got sick of it pretty much, and one night at dinner, she brings out this ceramic pot filled with a small piece of scratch paper. On them in her handwriting are individual prompts, similar to the ones that you saw in the slide before. She grabs one, she reads it aloud, she responds to it, tells me to do the same thing. I do, reluctantly at first, but it was important to her, so I went along with it. After a while, we keep doing this consistently, and what ended up happening was our communication started to grow and started to open back up again. And it also strengthened our relationship, and we were able to communicate and be more open with one another. So then from there, I'd like to fast forward to about a decade after, earlier this year, Matthew and I were using these positivity cards created by my mother still, and this kind of light bulb goes off, and like, what a cool thing this is. We'd love to have this in the hands of people and have everyone have these moments where they can connect and engage with one another and kind of grow in communication. So like, how do we do this? How do we make this a tangible, consumer-friendly product? So what we did was we just kind of started brainstorming, and because we thought it was important to create something that when people can come together and the only status you have is just being human, and the only currency that you can bring to the table is your participation, then it equalizes us and it brings us to a level where we're all the same. We're all humans, we're all going through this life together. So we thought if we can create something that's positive, engaging, then that type of connection and positive engagement allows us to genuinely belong to the group. And that group is basically human beings and people. And from there, that's what we set out to create.
So we started with social media, and we kind of created an identity on there where we really quickly gained a lot of followers who were really loyal to the idea, and we established some relationships with some very reputable nonprofits. And just like we did earlier, we just posted photos of cards, and people reached out to us and shared their experiences and their stories. And these cards are just the first step. PEAR as a brand, as you mentioned, is about creating like a safe space and environment for people to really open up and share things. So we have a blog on our website, and we're working on a podcast currently where people can come and open up about topics surrounding mental health, depression, anxiety, cancer, just overcoming tremendous odds, things of that nature. Because what we want to do is kind of take this unsettling direction that people in society seem to be going in and turn it into opening up and sharing your experiences is something that's not only fun, but it's like the sexy thing to do. So that's kind of the direction that we wanted to head in. Because as Nate mentioned, we believe that life should be lived with the mindset that you do belong and you are accepted, and that it's fun and exciting and beneficial to really share your thoughts and connect with others on a personal level. So as I mentioned, we have a blog where people can come and kind of have a safe space to share their stories. And after doing that, we wanted to get some funding for our PEAR Cards. we went through Kickstarter, which is an all-or-nothing crowdfunding platform. We launched on September 19th and ran it for 30 days. We raised a little bit over $19,000, and we had a little under 650 units ordered. A lot of these people are parents that want them for their children, or their teachers who want them in the classroom. We also have a lot of mental health professionals, so therapists and psychologists, speech pathologists, that really wanted this to, open up some dialogue with their clients. And so not only are the numbers important as far as the units that were sold and the amount that was raised, but it really validated our product and showed that there was a demand there, and that people really did believe in this idea. And I'll let Nate go into a little bit more of the target audiences and kind of how they're used in that market.
One of the first kind of fields we got into was mental health, and we saw great feedback from therapists, social workers, using this with the people they're working with, their clients, and establishing a type of trust and rapport, like creating that safe environment where communication is okay, it feels comfortable to open up. Family and friends is huge. That's kind of how it started with my mother and I, for example, or at dinner parties with friends and family over, coffee or stronger drinks, wine, you know how it goes, things like that. And we found we get a lot of great feedback over a couple drinks opening up. And then also in the corporate world and business settings with new hires, allowing new hires to come in and engage in this way and kind of get that sense of belonging and welcome to the team. Also just team building as itself with current employees, and also as icebreakers before a meeting. Before we get into numbers, let's get into just being here as human beings first, and we found that's been beneficial. And then education's been really big too. We've been working with teachers at Chico High specifically. They kind of taken this as teachers, our idea, and turned it into something specific for themselves. Another teacher is Spanish, is using these cards to translate, and having her students translate the cards, and then not only translate them by writing, but also while engaging and opening up real dialogue rather than just the normal textbook grammar. And it's also just allowed for teachers and students to have that safe space in the classroom, communication from peer to peer and also teacher to student. And so we're seeing this idea being used in all these situations to really open up and get people to engage and feel in a non-intimidating way.
All right, so that's kind of this pitch idea. I know that at the end you're supposed to kind of ask what the community can do for you. And as you see, we did raise our funding, so we've already ordered our first round of cards. But what we're asking for is for people who know, teachers or principals or people in the mental health professional field. If you know people that we can connect with that may really take to this idea, that's what we're looking for, is more connections and more reach to kind of continue to spread out PEAR and PEAR Cards in hopes that it can affect more people and change more lives. I think that's about it. Thank you. So 20 minutes of Q&A.
I'm sure we probably answered every question you have, but if there's more, we'll build them.
Okay, I'll start.
Yes.
So I'm familiar with Cards Against Humanity. Maybe some of us all here are. Obviously, that's more human-based. I think there's a corporate version called Cards Against Humanity. Are you guys familiar with that? And how is it different than what you guys did for that audience?
I haven't heard of that one, but I have reached out to people who created Cards Against Humanity and spoke with them a few times. And when we first did this, we had a friend who's actually a teacher at Chico High, and they said, I love this because it's like Cards for Humanity. And then we sent some prototypes to Mental Health America and American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, who are our beneficiaries. So we're going to be donating 10% of our proceeds to a few selected mental health nonprofits. And they said very similar things too as well. I haven't heard of that specifically. We did try to do as much research as we could and find things that were similar. But as Nate mentioned, I know that it does work really well in the corporate setting, because I sent some down to the old tech firm that I worked for in Santa Barbara, and our director of sales has been using it, like Nate was mentioning, to establish kind of a personal connection for the team before, so that the more cohesive a team is, the more productive they're going to be. When people are comfortable around others, they're going to open up, and you can establish better ideas and attack things from a different angle than you would if you're just at that business and professional setting. Once you connect with someone on a real relationship, there's just a lot more benefits there. But I haven't heard of that, and I'll look into it, so thank you for mentioning it.
Great idea. I really like it. And as a parent too, with kids who are getting close to teenage years, I definitely want to check it out. So well done. And I found myself quite curious. How did you arrive at the name PEAR, and what does that name mean?
So actually,
if I missed it, if you said
no, we did not. That's funny, but it's an acronym actually. We were just brainstorming. It's actually positive engagement and response was where PEAR came from, but PEAR is just easier to say. So, but yeah, it is an acronym, and that just came from brainstorming of what we were looking for, and kind of just hit it on the head, and also made for a cool logo. So we just went with it.
They answered Apple.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm wondering where you get your content, and is there like a series of different types of content you're using? Is it informed, or are you just looking for inspirational questions? Or
Yeah, so a lot of our content was, I'd say most of it was just from us, and we tried to work backwards. Kind of, we started thinking like, what happens in day to day? You go through your day, people usually ask you, oh, how was your day? Or simple questions like that, like, well, what would we want to be asked? Like, if the most perfect questions in our day or want to talk about over a dinner table, things like this in situations, what were the responses we want to give? We work backwards that way. So in the set, there's 97 actual different unique cards, and not all of them came from that. We asked people, what do you think? What would you like to be asked? And just kind of did research that way. Some were, similar questions. Things I appreciate about the day, my favorite time of year, because just things that get people to talk and open up, and that can lead to other conversations. So we try to work backwards that way, and just create cards that were genuine conversational content. And I think we did a pretty good job. And then in the future, we want to also tailor some of that content, maybe more specifically to different fields. So it's more specific to people's interests that work in corporate education right now. But right now, I think we have a pretty good across the board questions, content. Yeah.
I think this would be a really fantastic setting. I have a daughter in a homeschool hybrid program, and we can do these little social interaction, family things, and there's a lot of exquisitely awkward people in those settings, and I think this would be a great sort of starter warm up. And maybe if you want to come to one of our parent roundtables with a little presentation to get an idea of what's happening. I think it's important that sparking, especially that adolescent age, which is just that middle school awkwardness. We should start their little dances and things with something like that. It's just it's so painful sometimes sitting there, and it'd be great. I also do a lot of driving around with clients, so I think that'd be fantastic to be able to hand these out and sort of spark something happening. Awesome.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. And then the cool thing about that is I know that Nate's mom, Shelly, her friend, she has younger children right now, and she was mentioning that she brought it out at her daughter's sleepover. And at first, all the kids are like, I don't want to do this. Your mom's here. This is weird. And then after a while, what it really takes and what we found is, in the beginning, say there's 15 people and you pull out the cards. The first 6 might be just very straightforward answers and people aren't going to really open up. But on the 7th, someone might. And then once someone does open up and share something really personal, or just a very deep insight, it kind of kicks that off, and it becomes something that's a little bit, it's just easier for everyone else and people follow suit. So even if it is awkward in the beginning and stuff, it usually ends up being really well. Or even if just one person opens up, it usually makes that whole experience worth it. And then the next time they do it, more people are willing to do that as well.
I'm having an old memory of a game, I think it was called the Ungame. Is it something you came across in your research?
The Ungame?
So there was something very similar to this that came from the 70s, as I remember from my childhood. It was like a game where you would interact with people in the whole process of sort of sharing personal things. And the hook that I remember is the Ungame. I think it might actually have a different name that was called the Ungame.
I've heard of that. Someone mentioned it. I think I looked for it and I couldn't find anything. But I have heard that. And yeah,
So it's never published in the web.
No, I think it was properly published, but just a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it was specifically a game to be played before just
For the internet, yes.
That's why it's not on there.
that's right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It was clearly a hippie thing.
I want to ask you about your business model to this. So if I'm a teacher or I'm a health professional, am I going to buy just one set of these cards? And is there any sort of onboarding, training, guidance to allow me to do it, or do people just sort of do their own thing?
Great question. So when we first started, we created this as like a game, as you were mentioning over there. We thought, this would be fun to use with parents and their children or at a dinner party, because that's how we kind of came up with this idea. And as we started to share it a little bit more, a lot of friends who were teachers or ex-teachers that we had at Chico High said, I would love to have this in my classroom. And that's kind of when we realized that's a market that we didn't really think about. So we had a presentation kind of set up like this at the beginning of Chico High school year, where we presented it to the entire staff. We actually passed out cards so that the teachers could use them themselves at groups, and they took to it really well. So it's something right now where it's going to be marketed differently to cater specifically to that audience. So if it's family and friends, it is a game. It's a fun activity. For education and mental health professionals, it's a tool. And that's kind of like Nate was mentioning, we have created cards because we want to get that feedback, because everyone's going to be putting something different on it. A mother is going to be putting a different card question on there than a therapist would versus a teacher. So we would love to do something where we can go and do like a workshop or a team building kind of thing. So right now there's a lot of opportunities that we see this going into, and we're kind of just taking it as we go. And just kind of seeing, we're very open to a lot of branches of different verticals and where it can work. So there's, I don't know, it's pretty open right now. We're not like very narrow-minded on one set. We kind of want to see all the opportunities and see where it works best and kind of take it from there.
Cool. The corporate, and you probably have corporate trainers who would do like day-long or two-day events for this kind of stuff. So it might be a way to do partnerships as well, instead of you always having to create it. So at some point that gives you a little bit more like leverage and income on what you're doing. And just in the corporate market, the others are going to be their own way, definitely.
Absolutely.
Cool. Great idea.
Thank you.
Do you guys have like a board of directors with different people from different industries from like the mental health? So, like you said, there's mental health, there's you, there's different situations, but someone that has a professional background to help guide you with certain types of questions that may not be triggers, but to help people open up to, prep those questions accordingly to the situation that you're seeing.
Not necessarily, I guess, a board of directors, but which within each one of the fields that we mentioned, we do have contacts and people that we're working closely with, that we established a good rapport with, where we look to them and see, what do you need? What would work best for you? How do these go through these questions? How can we tailor these to maybe, some you don't need, some you do need, or some could be altered or pivoted in a way that really works for your field, whether that's education, whether it's social work, things that would fit specifically. And that's what we want to get into, is creating more specific sets for that purpose. But yeah, I think I would say we at least have one or two people in each field that we're kind of leaning to for that type of feedback, seeing what works for them, what is working, maybe what's not working, what could work better. And just like at this stage, we're very open and still just very flexible and just kind of absorbing it all and creating hopefully the best thing we can possibly create, tailored to what people want and what people we think we need to.
I just want to talk about one of the slides. Can we go back to like the teacher slide? So when you were presenting this slide, I kind of got confused. It's just a bunch of information. I'm thinking maybe instead of like the whiteboard, because I can't really read it from this far, just get like a picture of like a teacher and a student maybe engaging in the activity. I think that would maybe like tell me more about what's actually happening right there. Because there's just too much information and the picture isn't really helping out from this far.
Yeah, that's great. We're going back and forth on that as well, because we do have some academic content with teachers, students, us there as well. So no, that's great, because that was one of the things we were kind of debating on which content we wanted to put up there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, you mentioned mental health a few times, therapists and that kind of thing. I'm wondering what the interaction is and what the engagement is with the mental health community. I mean, do you have like an expansion pack for, mental health, or how does that look?
Yeah, so as we were saying, we spoke with a few people who were mentioning that this should be something where it's broken down going forward in like editions. So you have the family and friends edition, you have the corporate edition, you have the education edition, and you have the mental health edition. And a lot of that content is what we hope comes from those created cards. So like we mentioned.
Edition.
What's that?
Dating edition.
Absolutely.
A couple therapies.
And so hopefully on those creative cards we get a lot of great content from that specific market. So we can get a lot from the therapists and psychologists and see what they need, so that going forward, yeah, we can kind of cater to those cards that are in that pack specific to it. And then also, like Nate was saying, there's 100 cards, there's 3 create ones, there's 97 unique. So in the beginning, obviously this is just the first edition, so they're all the same, but you can go in and look at what's going to work best for that situation. So the therapist can kind of take out certain questions that aren't going to really work in their scenario. Or a parent might say, I'm not going to ask my 8-year-old kid this question. You don't have to use that. So you can kind of see what fits and make it unique and customized to your uses. But yeah, going forward, it would be hopefully, catered specifically to what that audience or what those people are using it for.
So as an artist, I kind of sometimes look at students not necessarily from like practical or profitable necessarily. So I kind of got fixated on the container. Like, do you just sell this in a box? Because if I had this, I'd love to have something that's kind of cool looking, and maybe they distinguish as you're branching out into different categories. Okay.
Yeah, so it's in a box. We originally were trying to find out how to package it because, as that original picture shows, it's in like a clay pot. So we wanted it to be something that was gonna look nice, but then, like we mentioned, since this is the first edition, yeah. So the cards are circular, so they're not like playing cards, but we wanted something that could fit nicely, so you could take it to go. Also, something that would look decent enough in a professional point, so it could sit on someone's desk and not be kind of overwhelming or anything. But you could also have it, on your dinner table. But like we said, we're very flexible. We're figuring things out. But yeah, the original is going to be in a box. They're circular questions. They're cards.
Well, I kind of like to have like a pear or something that is cool looking.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted pear-shaped cards, which obviously we wanted those too.
Or like a pear tin.
Pear tin would be cool.
They're expensive.
And but I think it's extremely expensive to get like a custom die-cut circular was.
And that's why I said I don't necessarily look at it from the
Right.
practicality, but I know that for me, I'd probably see it more and use it more if it wasn't in a box.
Okay.
Visually, I connect a bit more.
I like that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Where are your slogans?
Our slogans?
Yeah, you have amazing opportunities for business and marketing slogans, and you haven't hit us with one yet. I'm a branding professional, and so when I see PEAR, you create an abstract brand and you're not defining it in any way. And so this guy's right, when we looked at that whiteboard, you didn't show us the target audiences. You didn't show us, the people who are using it and their faces. So PEAR is cool, and you have a pear, but there's nothing else that is PEAR or defines what that is. And so I can see. So I just wonder, where your slogans are. The business slogan says exactly what you do, like your acronym, and the marketing slogan is like, just do it. Well, it could be, get it out. It could be that kind of stuff, and you could use that for every different one of your editions. You could have different business and marketing slogans that would attract them and to ground it for them, so they know what it is. So have you guys looked into slogans? Do you have slogans other than acronym?
Our original, kind of mission statement was PEAR is about creating positive connections and opening communication. And then as far as like a slogan that we have right here on the box, it's really small, so no one's gonna be able to see it. But it says life begins outside our comfort zone.
Okay.
Because
those are really long. Connect and communicate. Like the ones that really hit home. And what does PEAR stand for again? Because I still don't remember.
Positive engagement and response. And it says it on a few of the cards and stuff, but as far as the hats.
Is it on in front of your box underneath PEAR?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. That's cool. I do a bunch of slogans.
Absolutely. And like we were mentioning, this new target.
Define it for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. We agree. Yeah.
Yeah, cool, okay. Because I mean, I do like the idea that you got the logo and the pair in it, and making the pair itself relevant and memorable is, I think, where slogans can work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
So, when I was a little girl, my parents obviously couldn't talk to me either when I was 14, so we had a similar thing. And I remember it was like in a clear box or something, so I spent 2 seconds here Googling, and there's tons of conversation cards. So help me understand what makes your cards different, and what are the barriers to entries that other companies have to competing with you?
So in a lot of our, because obviously conversations, starter cards, games, activities aren't new. There's, I mean, just even from the Cards Against Humanity, all these games, table topics, there's thousands. But we felt that what we wanted to hit that hadn't really been tapped into, we felt was being tapped into correctly, was trying to bring both worlds together, the world of openness and communication, and with an emphasis that this is our goal, is to increase like our connection and sense of belonging, with also can be fun and entertaining as well. So there's one or the other, and some blend a little bit. We just wanted to create something that blended it basically better. And that's why we're trying to get feedback. We want to hear from as much people as possible, because we want to just mold them together and do it better than it has been done. Because if it had been done as well as it could, then we believe that there'd be a lot more connecting and communication going on amongst people. That it wouldn't be such a weird like faux pas or like taboo to speak about how we feel and expressing ourselves. And that there's still like, it's a weird thing for people to still even speak positively about themselves. To say like, oh, I appreciate myself, or I appreciate the person next to me. And so we want to make that the norm, rather than the like sit together in a room in a circle and have to do it like that. We want it to be okay. And so we think that hasn't really been done yet as well as it can be. And so that's where we want to shift and pivot that direction.
Also, I feel like the fact that so many people, and like I mentioned, we found a few things that were kind of similar to it, and they're small, but everyone has like a different, one that they can bring up, like, oh, have you heard of this? But they're all small, so none of them really made it, if that makes sense. There's just little ones that have tried to do something similar, but the cards were just the first, like we mentioned, is the first like product that we figured, this makes it concrete, this you can put it in your hands and you can actually use it. But really the idea of PEAR, as we mentioned, is more so like a lifestyle or like a brand of doing whatever it is that you are doing, that you are open and you're confident and you believe in yourself and you feel accepted. So whether it is the blog, so it's not just the cards. And really the idea isn't to, like we mentioned, we're trying to donate proceeds to mental health. We're not necessarily trying to make it rich off the cards. The cards are just step one of something that we want to grow into so much more. So that, it is like an idea and a movement that it becomes the norm to tell people. And also, we said this since the beginning, the idea of these cards really is to never have to use these cards. It's so that you use these and it becomes ingrained in your mind. So now, instead of going to my kid in the future or my friend, I'm not saying like, how was your day? I'm actually asking legitimate questions that get them to open up, and they're comfortable enough to respond to me and open up as well. So that's kind of the idea. You use these enough until it's in your mind, you don't even have to use these ever again.
No more questions. We're running up on 20 minutes. That went by fast, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Can I just follow up on that? It's not a question.
Yeah.
So that was an excellent question. There are already a lot of conversation cards. You guys need to be able to answer for your differentiation in one sentence. And you said it when you said that you're giving back to mental health. If that's what differentiates you, I would highlight that and be able to, answer that in one sentence.
And that can help you with your slogan. I don't know what your slogan is, but that was a good one.
I just at the very tail end of that, I heard what I wanted to ask, which is that obnoxious, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, you kind of answered it, that this is only the beginning, and anything that you can do to help us deliver us from this, especially with kids. you know, the picture of you and your mom, you didn't have your cell phone. You know, that's become exponentially more difficult to have connections. I've got a 15-year-old and they all get together, they're all connected. I mean, they're all physically in the same room, but they're like this, and thank you. And I hope in 5 years, you've thought of countless more ways to deliver us from not being connected.
Oh, wait, an app.
That's what I was just thinking.
That was from a business standpoint, everyone's like, it needs to be an app. And I'm like,
Yeah, I'm thinking that, you know, we understand Cards Against Humanity because it's an obvious formulation, right? You know, it's going to be a war crime to play this, therefore implying funny. We all get that, right? Same thing with a thing called Mad Libs. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
So Mad Libs, ad-libbing, but it's going to be mad. It's going to be funny and crazy. So I'd open up my ideas about what to call the cards, because PEAR says nothing to me. I mean, what is it, like Heart Connect cards, or, you know, connection cards, or Heart Open, or whatever, you know? Something, yeah, like the man said back there, but, you know, convey it to me in a very simple formulation that we all get, because that's what you're looking for, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, we had a recommendation from someone in the local community, Lane Hensley, and he was saying something similar, where just conversation starters, something like that.
Connect cards, make it very simple, you know?
It's not the same concept, but like those demotivator posters, I thought those were right. You know, 'cause they always have the, you know, let's get along, then they have these demotivators. It's like hard work pays off someday, but laziness pays off now. You know, it's wonderful. But anyway.
That's 20 minutes.
I was just wondering how you guys like using Kickstarter and kind of your experience with that.
How did we like using it?
Yeah, you know, because there's different options when you're trying to raise money. So what made you guys choose Kickstarter, and how did you like that experience?
So I have a film background, so I was kind of used to using that over the last few years because that was a great way that people usually kind of, you know, raise funding for their shoots. But not only was it a great way to raise money, but for me it was kind of, that was the best way to really see if it validated the product, and see if random people around the world actually could watch our video, read this, you know, quotes that we have, things like that, and say, yeah, I'd like to do that, rather than us just throwing a bunch of money at something that people don't want. So it was a quick validation, it was a way to, you know, get some like viral marketing as well, possibly. So we just saw it as the best option.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. That was 20
so much
minutes.
for the feedback and questions.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Matt and Nate. I really enjoyed it. We want to say thank you to everyone that showed up today. We want to say thank you to our sponsors, 6 Degree Coffees, CBAC, and let you know that we will be here next week, or is there a holiday?
No, not
Next week's a holiday.
next week's all.
So December we'll have the following one here.
No,
So please, be part of 1 Million Cups. Make sure to take a look at our Facebook page, like it, share it. Take a look at the 1 Million Cups app to have on your phone. If you have any more questions, please go to the Facebook page, put some questions, send us your questions so we can forward them to Matt and Nate, help them out. And let's see what else.
Sign in.
Sign in. We like to keep track of everyone that's showing here and share information and get you on our email list, so we can make sure that we're all notified and you are a part of the community. And see if you can bring someone next time and help spread the word. Thank you everyone for showing up for the week after.
Next week is canceled.
Next week is canceled for the holiday. Thank you everybody. We appreciate your time. Have a great day.